The time will be 1, 2, 3, 4. Exactly.
Woke up this morning without a warning. The words were still ringing in my head. It came, it seemed within my dream, a gentle voice, and this is what it said. Stop now, you got to stop and listen to what I say. Stop and feel that you've been missing.
Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom, LFE, and Greg tonight. We are actually bringing back on tonight Franco Di Nicola. We had him on here, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
And we just knew we had to pick up where we left off on that show and keep talking to this guy because he is sharing some amazing things, and I know a lot of you can relate with what he's shared in that first show, and there's a few things that we want to dig a little deeper in that we touched on in that first show. But first off, welcome back to the 100th Monkey, Franco Di Nicola.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me back, and it's always a pleasure to play with you guys. Yeah, the last time we were together was June 1st, actually, or around that time. That's when we connected anyways.
Yes, it was. We are recording this one on June 24th. I believe we're airing, oh God, what date is that? This will be airing on June 28th. So,
perfect.
There we go. Jake, did you want to lead out with the questions that you had there?
Yeah. I got a couple of things that I'm still kind of curious about. I guess one of my main things that I'm curious about, Franco, is individuality. And when we pass or when we transition and we go up to our soul level, and you explained, quite a few different layers of souls. And so I'm just still kind of curious on our individuality and how do we retain our individuality, or for how long in the ascension process until we all mold back, or is it like oh my gosh, I can see it but I can't explain it.
Mm-hmm. I got an idea of what you're trying to say.
Okay.
Well, your individuality will remain to the degree that you are choosing at this point, at the soul level, choosing to continue to go on your path until you've removed pretty well all the veils and have now gotten to a point of enlightenment where you want to merge with other aspects of yourself. So many of us have hundreds and in some cases thousands of lives, and each time you basically incarnate, and it could be on this planet, it could be on other planets too, from different dimensions and so forth. But each incarnation, the soul itself keeps a record of each individual experience that you've had. And it maintains all the key components of what it chose to experience in each life, the memories, what it learned, what it expanded its experience in, and so forth. You will continue to maintain this individuality through all the cycles of incarnating, going from form to non-form and so forth, until you get to the point where you've achieved a certain level of enlightenment and other aspects of yourself have chosen a certain level of enlightenment. Then the merging process occurs. So individuality still maintained, but not as fragmented, because now the individuality may encompass several souls that have had several lifetimes, or thousands of lifetimes in this case. Once you've actually, if you're talking about saying, well, we're not going to maintain as individual presentation of itself, or basically aspect of itself, to actually complete and become soul again, of course, all the other souls, the other aspects of yourself will have to also complete enlightenment. and say, okay, I'm done with the journey. Now I can merge. And once it merges, then it becomes that one consciousness, which is basically source itself. So in essence, when we're looking at it, we never really left that cluster of consciousness and that field of energy of all potentiality, which is source itself. We're just streaming individual experiences, and each individual experience is a piece of the puzzle. So if you have to look at it, say, I'm sure everybody's had puzzles which comes in thousands of pieces or hundreds of pieces or whatever, which we put together. So each one of us, each facet of us at this point in time, as a soul, is a piece of the puzzle. And each one will make choices of what experiences it wants to have, what incarnation it wants to have, what roles it will take on, and so forth, to complete itself. But once it completes itself, and when I say completed this journey and became experiential, it's just like a piece of the puzzle. That little piece of the puzzle now becomes fully colorful, becomes fully that piece that it chose to be. But then it's still a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle. And each piece, for example, all the pieces of the puzzle is actually joined together as they're all completing. It's still only another piece of another puzzle. That whole puzzle is a piece of another puzzle, and so on until you get to the main puzzle, if you want to call it that. I'm just using this as a simple analogy here at this point.
Yeah, I can visualize what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So now, I'm looking at it from my experience right now that I'm having, and all of these different epiphanies and breakthroughs that I've had in this experience, and there's so many of them that when I was able to finally articulate it to myself and see it clearer for myself, and not necessarily through a direct experience, would you say that those types of awarenesses, those levels of awareness that I'm gaining for myself, would be the integration of another soul or another experience that is now being integrated into this individuated unit of consciousness?
Well, as you become more aware, you're actually accessing, the first part you're doing is that you're accessing your own level of consciousness. So you start to realize that you have much more than what you've taken on in a physical form. So those realizations is, oh, okay, I now understand, know, and those epiphanies, like you said, are flashes of your own consciousness expanding. That's the first part. The other part is, at times we will go through processes where we are communicating with other aspects of ourselves, or say our soul families, for example. And the soul family is, everybody's a soul family, is a soulmate anyways. But at the same time, when we're talking about clusters, you may be tapping into that, and that's coming into your stream, and you now have those epiphanies, or you have those realizations, which creates an expansion within your own soul. So then, of course, your path starts to shift. It starts to take even a much more broader and much more expanded way of playing the game, if you want to call it that. So yes, you may be tapping into your own soul much more clearly as the veils are dissolving, because we have veils that we've put in purposely so that we can't access everything right away. But as we are having certain experiences, and there's certain transformations and aha moments, or whatever else you want to call it, along the way, you're removing veils. So you become more and more accessible to your own knowing as source itself. But that, again, is one cluster of it. And, of course, you can tap into others. The actual uniting of souls usually do not occur while you're incarnated in a physicality. It's usually in non-form that the two souls actually evaluate and create an attunement with each other. And then at that point in time, there is a merging that may occur. And at that point, usually the dimensions that it would choose to incarnate usually is not a dimension of a lower dimension anyways, because having a soul that is unified, or more unified anyways, really carries a high level of knowledge, which would not be so interested in playing a world which is very much more simplistic, very backwards, if you want to call it that, or anything of that nature. So that's that part of it. Now there are other components that come into play whenever soul is also starting to have more higher realization. There's a level of communication that's established. For example, the first level of communication, of course, is with your own soul. That's already a huge step for people. The next level is with your twin soul, which is your other half that has an identical signature, which you will communicate back and forth, most likely unconsciously, but you become aware of what is being shared. So the experiences of one half of your soul, or the similar signature, is now being shared so that it merges with yours and vice versa, where it expands your viewpoint. And for example, say that particular part of your soul has had other adventures that may not have been within Earth the plane as much, and would have had sort of more galactic experiences on other planets. It would stream what it learned and what you can utilize. And what happens, it creates a shift for you, because your viewpoint starts to shift quite drastically in how you play the game here. You won't see yourself as small as you may see yourself when you're completely lost in the 3D world, because that's what happens with people, is they feel that I am just this physicality. And, that's how we identify each other. It's just, this is who I am. I may be male, I may be female, and I have this career, I have this upbringing, I have this culture, I have this religion, I have this whatever it is. And you define yourself, which is okay. But what happens, and what is happening for many people, is they're seeing that there's more to this. And it starts to feel, no, this is not it. Or not all of it anyways. This is what I'm just experiencing now. So that all plays in part and parcel with a lot of the realizations and awareness that we gain. And then the game starts to change, because now you see yourself because the more you get awakened, more you become connected with your higher aspect of yourself, the infinite aspect of yourself. You now see your experience here much more as a role. And the choices you make, how you play the game and everything else is much more at ease. And now I've chosen to be on this journey. I'm going to maximize this journey. I'm not going to personalize anything. I'm not going to define myself by my game or my experience or my role or anything, interactions I do. I'm going to play it out fully and enjoy every aspect of it. And when I say enjoy, taking the maximum amount of experiences out of it and really not polarizing it, saying, well, this is bad, this is good. I'm just going to go full throttle and have fun with whatever is playing out, because as we talked about, I think at this time, we said we orchestrate every part of it. We make fully all decisions of how everything orchestrates in our life, our environment, who we interact with, and what roles we play for each other. There's nothing outside of us that we say, okay, something happened to me. No, that's the mind saying that, because the mind doesn't know the other part of it. But that's part and parcel of the dance that we're doing. But at the soul level, it says, yeah, I call this in. I want this experience to come in place, because we need to create a shift within ourselves. And this is the way we can do it most effectively at this point in time.
Right. Yeah. So there's, now I know you talked about the integration that happened within yourself, and the groups of 12 and 24.
Correct.
Now, Jake still had some questions along.
Yeah, with so I've listened to the show we did, on the first a few times now, and trying to understand the soul breakdown, or the different levels of the 12 or of the 24 that break down into the 12, and I almost kind of saw that as what you said earlier as a soul families, and I was kind of wondering if you could break that down just a little bit further, and just so I can maybe try to grasp it this time.
Okay, no problem. Yes, so the break. Let's put it this way: each cluster, each level of soul family is made up of 12 souls, with a nucleus, which is a kind of a third soul, if you want to call it that, but that's considered an oversoul. And then what happens, each of those souls have chosen to actually duplicate itself, has split with the same signature. So for example, if you're talking about the first level of soul family, there's a signature. There's a series of digits that actually encode the frequency and spectrum of light that you utilize to have your experience through. It's like a band of channel that you create or tune to, because it's like a radio or TV or anything like that. You may have hundreds of channels, and each channel has a slightly different frequency. By adjusting the dial, you now attune to that frequency, and you'll be able to catch that channel. So your soul family is in one band. It's just off a little bit, usually the last couple of digits within the band, where they're different from each other. But the main series, signature, if you want to call it that, or the frequency attunement, would be quite similar. So what happens is that because we're so close, there's a level of communication that's maintained. It's not full communication, but a level of communication much higher than any other cluster soul family. Then, of course, your twin soul, which is the one that you split with the identical signature, you're both on the same channel. You're both on the same frequency. However, you're not choosing to embody the one physicality. You embody separate physicalities. So one may choose to be out of body and one in body. One may choose to be on another planet. But because the signatures are so close, are accurate, identical, the level of communication from soul to soul is quite refined. It's like having a direct channel, if you want to call it that, because it is. It is exactly on the same channel. So you'll be able to communicate much more. However, there's a sense of respect for one another, and basically what is shared is what benefits each other along the way. So then when we're going back, so in essence, if you take the first soul family, it's 12. Those 12 split into two, so you have 24. But that oversoul is now interconnected to the next level of soul family, which is also 12. Okay. And in those 12, again, they've actually fragmented and so forth. So you're part of that. So in essence, the signature of that is usually one digit off again, or an additional digit off from yours. And what happens is you still have connection, but you're not having as a direct connection. However, what happens, the beauty is, as you become more in alignment and you become more enlightened, what you're doing is you're broadening the spectrum of frequency that you can access and communicate. So now you can start communicating to the different oversouls or different levels, soul families, and therefore now even get more resources to allow you to play with whatever you choose to play with while in an incarnate form. Now, once, of course, the souls, for example, the two halves, let's take it from the basic, the two halves have completed enlightenment. They've come to the point where, okay, I don't need to, I've achieved enough awareness of who I am, and I'm enriched in my own experiences at this point in time, and I'm expanded more than I was before, may choose to merge. So the two halves become one, the two identical signatures become one, and now you have the full access of the whole cluster of the two souls. Every experience, every lifetime it had, every epiphany, whatever you want to call it, every part of it is now unified as one. That's the first level. Then as the others do the same, all the other halves join, then what happens, you have them all merging, and then that one oversoul becomes one soul. So in essence, you're now taking 24 fragmented souls and merging into one soul. And now you have 24 life streams combined into one. And at that point in time, of course, each one, because of all its different experiences, has a different input. And once it merged together, it's like going into even a broader resource base, if you want to call it that. And then that continues going on and on. So we, at one level, we're going into the expansion part. And the expansion was souls who kept getting to a certain level and then break up again, split up and fragment and so forth, just to create different bands of channels, different incarnations, different, playing on different playgrounds and so forth. Yeah. Now it's in the contraction. So there's a lot of these joining that is taking place. So as completion is done, so it's not fragmenting anymore. It is now combining rather than what it was doing before.
Yes. You know that I somewhatly understand that much better than I did 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
So what I asked earlier with the individuality, so I'm seeing it when the two halves merge into one, and then the other ones all merge into one, and they keep merging. So we're still retaining our individuality, but we're so much more expanded. So let's say, just for conversational purposes, us here in the room, me, Greg, and Tom, right? We're all one soul, and we merge together. And now we still feel like each of us has our own individuality, but each of us has all the other one's experiences as well.
Correct. Yes. Now, again, that would be at the soul level. So it wouldn't be so much the individuality, what we would say as a mind, because the mind has its own individuality too, because the mind is isolated, or let's call that compartmentalized as one lifetime. As one lifetime. So when I don't know if you've heard of life regressions and so forth.
Yes.
That people do. So when you're doing a life regression, there's two levels. You can regress back to this present lifetime, which could be from the moment you were born or conceived till now. And what you're doing is you're looking at different points in your life, but that is usually accessed at the subconscious level, because the subconscious records every single experience that you've had, everything that you've seen to quite detailed. However, when we start regressing back into a past life, the subconscious mind has no access to that because it has never been there. The subconscious mind is isolated or localized within this incarnation. So now you're tapping into the soul. The soul has, of course, all the lives recorded. Now, of course, the details are not as accurate as a subconscious mind because it doesn't require to have all the details. It just keeps the more crucial, the more expanded part. For example, the subconscious mind will record, if you work in a factory, it would record every time that you put every screw in or whatever you've done in a factory.
Yeah.
At the soul level, if you regressed and you were a factory worker, for example, and you're in a different incarnation, the soul's not going to look at that and give you everything. It's going to cluster all together and just take the key points of what it meant and what you experienced during your duration of being in a factory, for example. I'm just giving you an example.
Yes.
And so we would just keep retain that part of it. So if you're talking individuality, yes, there is a certain level of individuality at the soul level because it has all these lives, but it is separate than the other lives it's had. Of course, the subconscious mind has this particular lifetime and only this lifetime in recollection. Now, some people say, well, how come I stream it through my mind? It's because what happens is you're communicating with your soul when we're tapping into the soul, which streams it to your right brain, and your right brain deciphers it and then pushes it out to the left brain, which will start to create the visualizational components of how it would be experienced in a physical form, for example. So in essence, it's not really stored in the mind, but we're using the mind as the computer to translate the information so that you can actually use a visualization, a thought form, or even a knowing that you can relate with while being in a physical form.
So, okay, here's another thing that I'm kind of curious about as far as, I won't say the final integration, but I think there's at least I sense that there's a point of our development where we have integrated body, mind, and soul. So, what I'm saying is that a point where that, that linear conscious awareness that we have while we're in the physical form, the mind has while we're in the physical form. An integration of that with the soul and the soul experiences and the soul awareness and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where they become one, and it, I see this as sort of like that. I suppose it's been described in the past as that becoming a master, or an enlightened one, or however you want to term that, and you have basically completed the physical experience and become completely whole while still in the body. Is this possible?
Well, that is the first level of integration that occurs. The first level of integration, like you said, is mind, body, and soul. See, the way we function at this point, as an average for people, is the soul has a certain level of consciousness and has a certain, I shouldn't say desire, but kind of a list of things that it would like to experience. The physicality is in the 3D world, is in the world, and is trying to somehow maintain itself in its functionality with its environment. And then, of course, the mind, and a lot of times involves the ego, which is the story maker, the one that actually has viewpoints and decisions and so forth, or what do you call it, belief systems and so forth, perceptions of how life should be. And you can have yourself fragmented, and that's what most people do. You have your higher self, which is soul, is separate, in a sense, where it isn't separate. It's kind of isolated as separate. And then sometimes people meditate just to connect because it's separate, or it feels a disconnect at that point in time. And then, of course, the physicality doesn't correspond with the soul and doesn't correspond with the mind, for example. However, the first integration that you were talking about is when we become aligned, where the mind, the body, and the soul are working in unison. So that whatever at the soul level or your higher aspect of self wants to experience, the mind and body are fully on board and are fully active in creating those realities and experiences without feeling the separation. So someone that is in that state, of course, they navigate through the world much different. So yeah, you can look at somebody and say, oh, wow, they're like a sage or a master. They've mastered their experience, because in essence, there is not that fragmentation anymore. There's that wholeness because of mind, body, and soul all working in unison. And the dance, the flow that is experienced at that point in time, in whatever path you take or whatever it is, it's much more at ease. It's through a level of neutrality. It's a level through you're very much more at peace with things. So you are much more active in whatever you engage in, because now mind and body and soul are all part and parcel of it. It's not the soul saying, I want to have this experience because this is what we need here. This is what we came here. And the body's going, no, that's painful. I don't like those sensations. I have judgment about that. And the mind is going, no, life is about this and that. This is how we've been conditioned, programmed, and so forth. So you can see the three, but when it's all aligned, then, their frequencies also balance too. So whenever you're in their presence, you might say, wow, what a nice energy. You feel that integration with them. You feel them, you feel that ease. And then you get drawn to the person because in essence, you feel, wow, I'd like to have some of that. I don't like to be all over the fragmented like I am now. I'd like to be part of that. You may not even be conscious of all the details of how it's working, but you just feel it and recognize it, because, we all have that potentiality and we all have the capacity to do it at any time as we move forward. So that's the first level of integration that you pointed out is perfect. Yes. That's right. The first level.
From that point, do we have the ability or option to remove ourselves from that reincarnation cycle, or continue on with the linear expression of our mind, also the whole integrated package? Do we have the ability at that point to continue that linear track?
You can, yes, you can choose. The soul will choose at that point in time, and in a complete alignment, say, okay, now that we've integrated, we're now going to play the role very differently. But at the same time, the first thing that comes up when it's fully integrated, because it comes to the realization that every other soul on the planet is another facet of you, you tend to take the role to want to participate with more of them, to facilitate them to do the same. Because in essence, that expands not only you, but the collective. And as that continues to expedites the whole process that we've chosen to go through. Now, at some point, they may say, okay, I'm done with this. And they say, I don't need to reincarnate in this dimension or incarnate in this 3D, third dimensional, fourth dimensional, fifth. It may choose a much higher dimensional because it says, okay, I've mastered it in this particular physicality, because each physicality has a different operating system. Each planet is a very different operating system. So in essence, it may choose to incarnate somewhere else, carrying another experience. Now, when it also has the option at that point in time, if it doesn't choose that, because it says, okay, I'd like to just visit other realms or other planets and other physicalities, it can project a physicality without an embodiment. Now, what happens is, in an embodiment, you take in all the experiences, all the operating systems, and so forth. So, for example, somebody embodies a human physicality, it comes programmed already that it has to eat, it has to do this, it has to do that, it has to learn this, and so forth. So, embodied it. However, if you're just doing a projection, which there are many on the planet anyways that are projecting, because I'm sure a lot of people have seen, they may have connected with somebody and then they disappear. They're not around anymore. Or they haven't seen them.
Right.
You know, even by walking, say you're walking down the street and you turn around and there's nobody there, right? But you just passed them. Well, that kind of a projected without an embodiment. So it will look very real, and because it is in a way, it just takes on a temporary hologram projection without all the encodements of how the operating system is. And you can do that, and you can spend time doing that if you want. There's a lot of options that open up once you've moved forward. And it's not, you know, you have to earn it or anything like that. That's not so. It's just that you get to a certain level where you see that you are much more effective in doing so, and you actually feel that you can do it because then you access the way to do it. So you may choose to navigate from place to place, or navigate, and you may decide to even stay in non-form for a period of time and assist other forms, other embodiments and so forth as a guide, or you know, taking on various roles. It's amazing how many options you have and what you can do.
Yeah.
Well, once you get there. Yeah.
So I've heard, you know, quite a few people here recently talking about this reincarnation cycle and being trapped in the reincarnation cycle. And, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, talking about not going to the light when you die, and it's a trap, and they're gonna you know, wipe your memories and send you back into a body. Yeah, the whole prison planet thing. So what's your outlook on that? I'm just kind of curious with the reincarnation cycle. You know, Tom and I were talking about, you know, a reincarnation cycle versus an incarnation cycle. You know, as an incarnation cycle is something that we're choosing, as a reincarnation cycle might be something that we might be trapped into. So I'm sure you've heard, you know, many people talk about this.
Yeah, it's actually been very interesting because that topic has come up a few times in other discussions and so forth. It's a viewpoint, really, because in essence, we always have a choice, where we incarnate. Now, what happens is if you reincarnate on the planet Earth, for example, let's use that simple analogy. If you keep reincarnating on planet Earth for a period of time, what happens is a sort of an imprint, an obsession that occurs, where in essence, you block yourself off to any other possibilities. It's like somebody taking a video game and getting really, addicted to that particular video game because it wants to continue to play the game until it completes the game. For example, if it only can get up to level 10 and there's like 30 levels, we'll keep coming back and it might go to level 12 or whatever it is and just keep coming in. So it basically just chooses to keep coming back. It's almost like even if it's offered to them, in a sense, they're saying, well, you know, there's other planets. You can go and travel. No. I got to get back in there because I feel even much more prepared to do so. Now, that's the first part. Second part, when we're talking about souls being trapped, if they're in a lower level of consciousness, of course, then their options seem to be limited. And then even in a sense where they feel like they're stuck in a cycle, they're not quite stuck in a cycle because you always have the option, but there's also that unknown. If you have enough veils, you don't realize there is another option anyways.
Yeah.
So some people talk about, yeah, okay, then you're kind of stuck coming back and you have no option, but it's not quite the truth. Now, as for what they call the white light and everything else, that's again another spectrum of understanding, the false light and whatever else. In essence, the soul, depending on its state of awareness, can sense which path to take, because some, what they call white light, which is just a stream of spectrum of light, which may not offer you enough of what to come to the realization that you can you can make another choice. But that's because you're already in that band of frequency where you can't really access the other one anyways. Now, that's kind of changed in the last little while, because since the end of 2012, going into 2013, there was a rearrangement that took place with the souls. So any particular soul that's, say, on planet Earth, I'm going to stick to planet Earth at the moment because this is what we're playing with. With planet Earth, any soul that leaves the planet at this point in time will go through a series of light realms, if you want to call it that, which is just spectrums of frequency that actually create an erase the imprints and erase the memories. And when I say memories, I'm talking about at the soul level of unfinished business or anything of that nature, so that in essence, each soul now has the opportunity, instead of reincarnating back to planet Earth, it basically is a reset point, and it be able to see much more of the options and then choose. So in essence, even if it's in third dimensional consciousness and wants to play in the third dimensional consciousness world, they would not normally choose planet Earth anyways again this time around, or whenever the next time around is, because in essence at that point in time it says, okay, planet Earth is transforming. It's already in fourth and it's going into fifth. It's actually in fifth, the planet itself, or not fully integrated, but the collective consciousness is shifting anyways. It would not find itself comfortable to choose that, and it would choose a different planet, because there are other planets that will transmit third dimensional consciousness. Now ours is quite unique in a sense because ours is inverted. So that was kind of created as an explorative experience where everything works backwards. I don't know if we talked about that before, but
No,
so
we
even
haven't.
oh, okay. So what happens? I'll cover for you. I'll mention most planets, all the planets, basically, depending on the dimension they're in. Let's use the analogy of school. Okay. So planet Earth originally has been third dimensional consciousness. So it's like grade 3. Okay. So you're put into grade 3, or you choose to go to grade 3 because that's where you feel comfortable to go. And the purpose of going to grade 3 is to integrate you into grade 3 so that you're prepared to go to grade 4. And this is what any planet does. You go through a third dimensional consciousness, you explore, you experience, you master the third dimensional consciousness, preparing you to go into a fourth dimensional consciousness at some point, and then on, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so forth. So the souls are upgrading their experiences, and of course the embodiment will change too, because as the dimensions are higher, you're not so connected to the physicality being as so extreme, and so forth. Now, what happened in planet Earth originally, when it was designed 15,000 years ago, and when I say 15,000, the planet's been here a lot longer than that. We've gone through many, many series, but it was retooled about 15,000 years ago. And our physicalities were put in place 15,000 years ago. This particular series, again, it's only a series because there have been other humanoids and so forth on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years and on. Now, they were just different series. And even the people that have explored and found remnants of, older physicalities, and Greg Braden was, talked about it and finding a physicality that can maintain its pristine state, and it was 250,000 years old, but found that the DNA and genetic coding was completely different. It wasn't even close to anything that we had. But in essence, because those are just different series, right? And I won't get into those details unless you want to play with it at some point. But so when it was modified, planet Earth was basically populated by plant life, animal life, insect life, reptilian life, of course, and then bird life, coming from different planets and different dimensions, and was all, of course, tuned to be able to operate here. And then our physicalities, which were a makeup of 12 different species, was actually created and put on the planet, and of course the souls have come in and of course utilize it. However, about 10,000 years ago, there was a particular race that had come to the planet and decided to create a different experience and altered the design of the human experience and everything on the planet at the same time. So, in essence, before we functioned very differently. The separation, the survival, the struggle, the fear, none of that existed. The fact that we had to eat then was not a requirement. In actual cases, we basically our presence in the sun, the air, the water, whatever was around us would actually nurture us like a plant would. But, we were still moving. And then, at that point in time, we had a digestive system, but it was really designed for fruit anyways, but as a sensorial experience, not as a nourishment or a requirement for nurturing and so forth. And the animal life was, coded. When that change occurred, at that point in time, the planet was designed to go from third to ninth. It was a self-evolving planet. So in essence, as the clusters of souls were on the planet, as they completed the cluster or the collective, completed third dimensional consciousness, the planet would upgrade to fourth and then fifth and sixth, and it was supposed to go up to 9. However, when the modification occurred 10,000 years ago approximately, then it actually got inverted. So in actual fact, it wasn't like grade 3 anymore. It was a backward grade 3. So in essence, when you come on planet Earth, the push was to degrade instead of progress. So in essence, it's like going to school in grade 3, and the whole motive of going to that grade 3 was to flunk you to grade 2 and 1, in a sense. Which makes it very colorful, very experientially rich, and also gives you the most challenge too, in a sense. So that's kind of what was played out up to this point in time. Of course, now that's all changing. Now, of course, we could turn around and say, well, look at those devious, beings that came on the planet. We're all playing roles. We're all assisting each other. It was a choice that we decided to experiment on, and okay, the experiment went for quite a long time and made very low progress, except for the last little while, which we're making much larger progress, of course, because there's a stimulation that has occurred now. So this has been induced, the process that we're going through. It's not going through natural evolution, because in natural evolution, it was calculated it would take another 200 years to get, what we're going to achieve in 5 years, sort of thing. So in essence, it's been induced to kind of. And then there's matrices. There's like the original matrix, which is basically every planet has, and they're all interconnected and they communicate. And then of course we have our matrix, which is the matrix that we're using now, which is an inverted matrix, which was superimposed. And so basically we went offline and we went to a localized line. So for example, a computer going to online to a main server that connects to many other servers. We went to a localized server, which basically spews out exactly how we experience life, which is all backwards. So you'll see that anything that's true is made as a lie, and anything that's a lie is projected as true. So for education is not for higher learning or expansion. It's about creating programs and so forth. It's actually keeping you backwards. The health industry is not about, making humanity much more at ease and comfortable and well and vibrant and thriving and so forth. It's actually causing demise. That's where it's designed. Law is not about justice. It's about the opposite. It's who can take advantage of somebody else, type of thing. You see how everything is backwards. But that backwardness, because as you become aware, and I'm sure you guys have started to notice, as you become more aware, you start to see the game and you start to see how it's all backwards, and you start saying, wow, this is quite interesting, and now it's up to us as a collector saying, okay, I think we had enough of this game. Let's start creating a shift, and not enough because we're tired of it or pissed off about it. It's just we come to the point is, okay, it's time to alter this journey and create something different, and that's it. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. I think we all feel that, it's just time to move on,
Mm-hmm.
We're just, we've played this game long enough, and I'm only 32 years old, but I feel like I've been playing this game for a lot longer than that. And, I definitely agree. I mean, what do you see coming for us? I mean, how how can each one of us take an active role in helping this shift take process? So we can make sure that it does happen.
Well, it starts with us, of course.
Yeah.
The first thing is basically it's the way we function, the way we think, how much power we give in whatever we have taken on as a conditioning and program and so forth. So the first stage, which is a big push that's happening right now for everybody, is the deprogramming process. It is what we call purge and clear, whatever it is. In essence, what happens, we are being forced, and when I say forced, induced is a better word for it, induced from within, from a higher consciousness, a higher knowing, or a higher aspect of ourselves, to actually let go of everything that we have adopted as our reality. And for example, the rules, the way the game is played, our definitions of who we are, how we function. So in essence, by doing so, letting go of emotional attachments and stuff like that we've created, which is great in a way, but at the same time, it actually disempowers us and keeps us locked up. So what we're doing at this point in time is for us to look at our life and to see the bigger picture of how it actually functions. So in essence, if we have certain things that are coming up, like rules, programs, like what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, or we have, we're carrying on to baggages of, what happened to us 20, 30 years ago, or whatever, 50 years ago, whatever. And we still allow that to dominate how we decide, how we create our reality within. And that's the thing. So in essence, the first part of it is to deprogram ourselves, to let go of all the stuff that we adopted. So we start letting go of all the definitions around that I'm a male and I should act this way, or I'm a female and I should act this way, or this is who I am, or something like that, or that I'm from this religion or from this culture and so forth. And you start taking down all the barriers, because each definition, each set of rules confines you. So as you let go of those confinements, what happens is your viewpoint expands. You can see the game, and then you can start gathering with others to make different choices. Because ultimately, when you really look at it, everything is made up. Everything is a game. We have the absolute essence of how we can change anything and everything. But we have to come to that realization. And we have to let go of fear. We have to let go of the whole idea that we need to survive, struggle, and, get caught up in what we need to do or what people think or anything of that nature. These are all things that as we start to shift. But we also have to get to the point where we let go of this right, wrong, good, bad, because in essence, have you noticed, as we become more aware, the first step that people do, and we start recognizing some of the systems out there. We start recognizing what others are doing to, keep us asleep or slaved or whatever you want to call it, which, and then of course the first thing that comes up is, oh, look, they're the nasty guys and they're the evil ones, the dark ones, the negative ones, blah, 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 and we need to go, fight them or whatever that is. And that's the first part where you still, you come to the realization, the game, how it works to a certain degree, but you haven't come to the consciousness of yet that this is only a game and that we've agreed to this, but that everybody's just playing a role, and it's up to us to complete our necessity to have that particular role, because then it basically dissolves. In essence, when you come to the realization and say, okay guys, we don't need to play this game anymore, and you just basically, anyone that's taken a role as a leader or in charge or making rules of some sort, you can say, okay, we relieve you with great love. Everything that you've done, you did a fantastic job to create the resistance, the polarization, and everything else. However, I'm going to relieve you from your responsibilities. Go out and have fun and play, do something else, because we no longer need to play that. So then that becomes very powerful in that state, because in essence, you're not going to see the right, wrong, good, bad, or anything of that nature. You're going to see other facets of yourself. So those are all parts and parcel of it. So the key is deprogramming. The key is letting go of all the stuff that you adopted as your belief, your perception, your idea, and so forth, so that you expand. And then you're not emotionally charged. You see the big picture, and then you start taking actions, first on self, because your reality starts to change. It causes a powerful ripple effect with everybody else. But then you start uniting with others, and the consciousness starts to expand, and then you finally say, okay, let's change the game, and it's done. And it doesn't have to be a mass amount. As long as you get a certain percentage of it, it already is very, very, very powerful in that regards. So that's how we induce the shift. Now the shift is already happening. Really the key when people say, well, how do I know I'm going to be part of the shift, or is the shift going to happen? I say, well, the shift is happening. It is, are you going to participate or not? Are you going to be part of it or not? Meaning, am I going to be here to do so or not? That's up to you. But what's the key is what progress you make with your own personal transformation, because it starts with you. And when I say you, each one of us, really, all of us are playing a role, right?
Right. That's a big key right there, because so many people, they're out there. There's that fear/worry element that kicks in about, am I doing enough? Am I doing the right thing? Am I helping or hurting with what I'm trying to do? And, I know at least in my own experience that, once I got off of the evangelistic mentality that I had adopted initially when I first got into this, and it was just like, wow, it's real. I got to share it with everybody. And, I definitely suffered the consequences of my trying to jam it down other people's throats. But once I was able to find that steady gate for myself, and allow things to come to me, that whole, when the student is ready, the teacher appears syndrome kicked in. And universe brought what was right for me to interact with at the time, knowing my intentions, knowing my heart, and brought all the perfect experiences for me. But right now, there's so many people that are worried about what they're doing and how they're doing it and whether or not they're going to make it. What kind of advice could you give to the worry warts out there?
Well, as you can see, worrying is also part and parcel of the old program. It's the old 3D program. The thing is, you can't screw up, per se, because even if you continue playing a negative role, stuck state, whatever it may be, you're still part of the whole. You're still creating an effective measure, because even someone playing a negative role actually only intensifies the negativity to the degree where everybody becomes saturated, or the people around them become saturated, where they choose no longer to polarize itself being negative. So in essence, let go of the worry and start to become the observer and look at everything that you are choosing and how you're doing it. Ask yourself, okay, why am I choosing to do this? What's driving me? Is it fear, or is it I feel guided to do this, or I feel more natural to make a new choice? For example, a lot of people may have certain things happening in their life and they feel deep inside, I need to shift this. I need to let go of this particular habit or this journey or my, judgment and so forth. However, but they're not taking the steps to do so, but they know, right? So in essence, what's happening is, becoming the observer, you start to, okay, this is my pattern. This is what I keep going through over and over again. Let me take a look at it. How much more do I need to play this? Do I really need to play this? Can I make a shift in it and choose that? Nobody's going to be left behind, regardless. Even if your soul decides, listen, I'm not going to make it through this path. I'm not going to be participating, for example, through this transformation. But I'm going to maximize as much as I can while I'm here. And at some point in time, I will choose to exit or leave the physicality and go in non-form for a period of time for whatever it is, and then make a new choice. But at the same time, it may turn around and say, okay, listen, I may not be able to, at the soul level, choose to be able to do this fully and completely because of my state of consciousness and also the amount of veils I have. So I'm going to participate in assisting as many people as possible. So I'm going to play whatever role I need to play that will enhance everybody else, either polarized or not, and it benefit. But, the thing is not to get to worry about it. Be the observer. Pay attention to certain things that bring you back to the old you. And the old you is in fear state. The old you is concerned. The old you worries. Your old you is, stuck in the fact of survival, and so forth. Struggle, that life is tough and there's right and there's wrong, there's good and there's bad, and we have to judge and so forth. Those are all indicators that, you're still playing within that game. So at that point, yeah, if you want to experience it to the max, full out, and then come to the point of saying, okay, now it's time to move on, and you make new choices. You get out of those patterns and so forth. That's the thing. I mean, even if you decided to worry and you decide to do that, it's only going to bring you to a point where you come to the realization, you know something? I'm going to do whatever I need to do at this point in time. I'm going to follow my own inner guidance. I'm going to make choices, and I'm going to move on. Because at some point, it's going to be impossible or very difficult for you to stay in your old pattern anyways. So one way or another, you're going to move forward. But if you want to be flowing with it, observe, make adjustments, see what comes up for you. Because a lot of the indicators are emotions. The indicators are, default programs that we go in. If somebody says to you something and then you go into a rage, or you go into a worry state, or you go into, oh my God, I've just been offended, or whatever it is. Those are all old programs and so forth. They kind of keep you in the old 3D world. So when you observe it, you say, oh, look at that pattern. Okay, why am I taking this so personal? Why am I, defining myself by it, or whatever it is? And then you can make adjustments by letting certain things, part of it go, or you make an adjustment in one way or another to pass beyond that in essence. So hopefully that explains enough of it. I mean, there are a little bit more details we can get into if you like.
Right. Well, yeah, there's a lot of double-edged swords within that too. I mean, we get when you get that knowing within yourself that, hey, I can do no wrong. There's a kind of a slippery path there, especially when right initially when that knowing comes upon you, like, I can do no wrong. What can I do? So, at least I personally found myself doing things that I know I shouldn't have been doing, but then explaining it away, excusing myself because I can do no wrong. And only later to find, well, geez, well, I know I shouldn't have done that, all the while, somewhere in me knowing that these actions that I took, and using my scapegoat of I can do no wrong, actually brought me all back around a kind of a circuitous route back to right where I started from, and going, well, okay, well, yeah, that's true, but I guess I needed to go around that circle to learn it a little bit better.
And that's the perfection in all of it. Exactly. That's the perfection right there. Because even if you do go down a path of a lower state of consciousness and a lower frequency, or, making choices that, say, well, okay, I'm going to go down this because I want to explore this. But it always comes back around one way or another to kind of make an adjustment within yourself. And
right.
This is why, when I tell people you're making a shift in yourself, don't judge yourself for your choices, because now you can look at something that you may have chosen before, 5 years, a year ago, 2 days ago, whatever it may be. And now you're looking at it and say, oh my God, what a mistake, what stupidity, why did I do that, or anything of that nature. And then, feel guilty, feel bad, and so forth, to say, okay, this is where you needed to go. That's what you needed to experience. Let's move forward to it. The point is, it brought you to another level of awareness and consciousness, regardless of if it was painful, if it was, created something with somebody else or something of that nature. But everything is purposeful to bring you forward one way or another.
Right.
Right. And then, of course, when you get to a certain level of consciousness, then, of course, the choices are different. They're not going to be choices that bring you into a lower state or a polarized state. So you're not going to choose to go harm somebody, for example. Right. But if you could do it at first, well, that's where you were still in that, and that's where you're going to learn. And, of course, the person that gets harmed, for example, they had to make a mutual agreement to be the recipient of that harm, if you want to call it that. But, it's not outside of there, okay, I forced somebody, I did something. It was an agreement. But at the same time, you were there at that point in time. That does not mean that, now you have to look at it and beat yourself up and say, okay, that's the role I played. Now I move on from here.
Right.
And it's so much easier than carrying the guilt or feeling that I have to do amends with this and all of that stuff, because this is where people start getting into, you have to start forgiving and you start to do this and that. And they say, well, the moment you start getting into that, you're still playing around with right and wrong. You know?
Right.
The moment you have to forgive somebody, that means somebody did something wrong to you, and you're being the bigger person that, you know, is going to let them off the hook, if you want to call it that, right? But in essence, they just played a role, and you asked them to play that role, even though you're not conscious of it. So the thing is, you're better off saying, thank you for the stellar role that you played, and move on from there.
Exactly. All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour, and wow, there was a lot of information in that hour, guys. I'm definitely going to have to listen to that one a couple of times.
Yep.
And so, Franco, what do you got going on out there?
In which way?
Oh, well,
lots of stuff going on.
You got any conferences or workshops coming up?
I have a couple of more retreats coming up, and there's a conference in the fall. The two retreats are in August. I'll get the dates lined up. It's the second last week and the last weekend of August. One is up north, and the other one is not far from the city of Toronto. We have the one retreat will be, the one that's up north is. Geez, can't even think of the name now. But that one there covers a lot of details and helps people get a higher understanding so that they can maneuver through life. The one before that, the retreat, the weekend before that, it's more of a dance, a play for people to kind of get to meet themselves, get to understand who they are, and to be able to. There's going to be kind of hands-on processes and stuff like that where you get to connect mind, body, and soul and things of that nature. So those are coming up, and I will have the dates available. I do have them already scheduled, but I don't seem to maintain memories of dates.
Yeah, it's 3D, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then coming into the early fall, if not earlier, which I haven't scheduled a date, we're doing an actual clearing process where we will teach people and provide tools for people to clear old programs, old belief systems, old emotional charges, and so forth, where they can actually let go of the layers of what they confine themselves with. I've done this before, but this time we're going to go into more self-help, in essence. So we basically create the tools and the understanding, which will have meditation and so forth, that will help people to be able to go home and do it on themselves. Because, I mean, you can't do it all in one sitting anyways, but at least when you learn, because as you're living life, certain things get triggered. And I'm sure you guys have noticed that, you have gone through certain parts of your life and you've kind of let go of it because it no longer functions. But then you're playing life every day, and all of a sudden an interaction or a situation comes up and something else gets triggered within you. So now you got to go back and say, okay, now I got to go look at those other parts. Right. And so those are the things that are coming up. And of course, there's always shows and stuff. But we're kind of slowing it down for the summer down to 2 retreats only. I had one retreat a couple of weekends ago, and we have 2 more coming up for the summer. Both of them are in August, and then we'll get to the clearing one most likely in September.
Cool. All right, FrancoDiNicola.com, and the links are on the show page here. So wherever you happen to be listening to this at, I would urge you to go on over to www.the100thmonkeyradio.com, so you can check out hour 2. And also, if you haven't listened to that first show we did here last month, I would also urge you to check that one out too. There's some good stuff there. So. We will be back after a short break and continue on this fantastic conversation. And I think I want to, maybe start this second hour out and talking about animal souls. And I'm going to share some experiences that I had recently and get your take on it too. So we'll see you guys in hour 2. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
How do you wash your sleep today?
Namaste, my friend.
Along the way, put aside your petty fight, serve your dignity. You've got to show the heart that you've been hiding and set it free. There's just one door, we're gone wrong. We only know it. And if the cure for one is the cure for us all, there's an urgent message trying to reach you. It serves yourself and pick up the call. You gotta pick up the call. It came the same way the very next day. The words they just kept on coming through. Hard to conceive if you believe me. This is what you really want to do. You got to tune into your inner being. Now let it be. You got to activate your inner vision. Now let it see. Cast out the doubt, the mindless chatter. Now let it go. It's time to tap into the heart of the matter. 'Cause don't you know there's just one cure in a world gone wrong. We only love it. And if the cure for one is the cure for all, step right up and don't be shy. Excuse yourself and pick up the call.
Pick up the call.
You gotta pick up the call.
Pick up the call. One more time before I go. One last thing you need to know, my friend. You want to keep it complicated. It's really all quite simple in the end. You got to tune into your inner being. Now let it be. You got to activate your inner vision. Now let it see. Cast out the doubt, the mindless chatter. Now let it go. It's time to tap into the heart of the matter. 'Cause don't you know there's just one cure in the world gone wrong. We only love it. And if the cure for one is the cure for us all, step right up and don't be shy. Got to look yourself right in the eye. There's a magic moment trying to meet you, an urgent message trying to reach you. The phone is ringing off the wall, so pick up the call. You gotta pick up the call.